I'm Katrina, and this is Sew and Tare. It is way past time that I prune these trees, and so that's what I'm going to be doing today, is pruning my peach trees. What I didn't do last year that I probably should have done is a summer prune. Usually I go through after the fruit has ripened and done this thing, and I've gotten all the fruit, is I go through and I prune it then, and then I come back and prune just a little bit more in the winter, and I did not do that this year. You can see that these trees, they grow quite a bit every single year, so I'm going to get on it. When pruning new growth, you prune a half of what is grown the last year, or down to a third. So when you're pruning, you want to prune of the new growth from last year, you want to prune 2/3 to 1/2 off of that growth. And especially if it's on a small tree, you're going to be a little concerned, but it's okay. It'll grow back. What you're doing when you do that is you are making the tree stronger. So think of it as like a haircut, where you trim your ends to get the split ends off and all that, and make your hair healthier. It's the same exact concept, except for it's tree branch, and you trim more than what you would for your hair. So that is what we're going to do today. So here's a small branch, for example, and you can see that, so like much of the branches is what you're going to see. There's a node there, there's a node here, here. When you cut, you want to cut above one of those nodes. And let's say that this is where you're going to cut. You want this to grow. So this is pointing up, which is good. And you want to cut it in a diagonal. So I should have brought my hand pruners, but anyway. I'll do it and then show you. This is the type of cut you want, preferably closer to the bud than that. But this was a plant like this. I'm trying to get it focused. And you're wanting this bud to grow. You cut it so that the water drains away from that bud. Now what you don't want to do is, let's say, now this was growing straight up, but let's say that it was growing like this, right? You don't want to save the ones on the bottom. This one you might be able to train out, but pretty much you want to take the bottom off, bottom off, bottom off, and let it grow out. And why? The reason for this is because fruit grows on branches that are horizontal. So you can train your trees this way too, but they grow on horizontal branches. If you want more fruit earlier on a tree, on like a young tree, then you can actually put weights on the tips of your branches and bring them down, and that will give you more fruity branches. Instead of like these, they are going up, way up. So if you wanted these to fruit more, you can bend them down. Different kinds of fruit on different ages of branch. So that's something to pay attention to when you are looking at your fruit trees, when you're pruning them. So all of this is new growth. All of this is new growth from last year. These would be fruiting branches for this particular kind. This is a peach tree. This would be a fruiting branch. So I am getting rid of some fruit, but if you had every single one of these buds fruit, you're going to lose this branch, right? It's still thin, it's still bendy. That's why we want to cut off 1/3 to 1/2 of this branch to make it stronger so that it can support that weight. So that's what I'll be doing. I think I'm going to give you guys a before and after, but you might give you the process as well. Something to keep in mind is that trees are resilient. So if you're pruning along and you cut something you didn't mean to cut, it's okay. The tree will likely bounce back. So in this case, what I've done is I've taken the first step and cleared my path. So this is a walkway that goes around my pond. So I do want it to be a pathway. So something to think about is when those trees have fruit, they will get heavy. So know how low you're willing to duck when you're walking through your fruit trees. Next thing is to prune out any dead wood. So dead wood actually takes energy from the tree. So it takes energy to hold on and support it even though it's dead. So cutting those off as close to the trunk as you can is a really good idea. So once those two are done, so cutting out dead wood and cutting out basically where you're going to walk, pathways, you know, making sure sticks aren't going to poke you in the eye, that kind of thing, then that's when you start looking at the structure of the tree. And you want to be able to have room between the branches. And when you have room between the branches, what that does is it reduces the amount of moisture that can stay in there. So these particular trees, these are peach trees that I'm pruning now, they are susceptible to peach leaf curl. I will be spraying with copper for these trees because I know that I won't get fruit, or I won't get hardly any fruit if I don't. I don't do that with any of the other trees on the property. But peach leaf curl is spread in the air, and especially if it's foggy or if it's rainy in the summer, that spreads it through the moisture droplets. So keeping that as airy as possible is really, really healthy for the tree. So that is our goal, is to keep the tree healthy. You can also make sunlight go deeper into the tree. People prune in different ways. They can have a tree that's like this, you know, you think a Christmas tree or something like that. And then you have a tree that is open. And if you have a tree that's open, that's what the orchards do. So the orchards actually take the middle of the tree out and they spread out the branches. And you'll see, if you look in the California Valley and you drive down I-5, you'll see the tops of them are all cut. It looks like a helicopter flew upside down and chopped them all off. Well, there's a reason for that. The energy from the tree goes to the tallest branch. So usually in plants you call that the apical meristem. And for fruit trees, we can cheat the system. So we can make all the energy go to the tallest branch if all the branches are approximately the same height. So that's why the orchards do it. That's why in your orchard, if you want the maximum fruit production from your tree, you're going to want to have the maximum energy to all of your branches. So it's a good idea. It doesn't have to look like a flat top like they do in the valley, but it's a good idea to have, to understand at least that principle when you're shaping your tree. So it's best to start at that young, and if it's not, then that's fine. You can do that at a later time. I did prune one of these back significantly a few years ago. Like, I didn't get fruit from it the next year. It just needed to be redone, and that was mostly a peach leaf curl. My response to peach leaf curl is just to try and knock out as much as I can, and then have the tree start over. And it worked out really well, and it gave a huge harvest last year. So I just want to make sure I touch on those points and tell you about the why behind the pruning. So 1, prune out dead stuff. 2, prune out areas that you don't want to be stabbed with trees. 3, think about how when the branches are fruit laden, they are going to get much lower. And then 4, the health of the tree and where you want to concentrate that energy, that growing energy. All right.
So the X-ray can kill the quail?
That can hurt them.
Huh?
It can hurt them over.
As an egg?
Probably.
For hatching?
So sometimes you can see you've made a decision, like the old one up there makes the branch go that way and up. And the tree made a different decision, which is to grow that ginormous branch. So this is 1 year's growth. It's like an inch thick. You can show how hard this is to do. This is a 1 year branch up here. Alright, so this whole like full-on tree branch, that grew in 1 year. So this is why we prune every year. This is why I needed, and for these kinds of trees, pruning, doing summer pruning, which is what I missed, is a great idea. So we're going to be using all of these branches and we're going to chip them up and put them in our pathways, or maybe in with the chickens or the quail. And that will give us something to break down and bring into compost. Another thing you can do is just put it underneath your trees as mulch, and it works great. So here's one of the tree structures. One of the structures I was talking about. So you can see this is one tree. Right, here's the main trunk down here. It splits off, and that's one main branch, and this is one main branch. We actually cut off another main branch that was huge. So here's another branch off of this, another main branch, and another main branch. So all of that you can see is one tree. Now, just because it's fun to see, this other tree, this tree right here, this was planted the same time this was. They were both $6 trees from Grocery Outlet. So this was planted a little bit higher in the mound. The mound had horse manure in it. And then the other one was lower on the mound. I don't know if it's that or if it's because of the variety or what. But there is some reasoning there. So when you prune this way, you're going to think, oh my gosh, I'm getting rid of all the flower buds. It's not going to get any fruit at all. And what's going to happen is you're going to get lots of fruit. We got over 300 peaches off of this tree last year, which is pretty significant for a $6 tree. Buy your trees, not your peaches. And those are actually only the ones that we froze. So we froze about 300, and we've been using them for smoothies, and sorbet actually is really good for that. And then, that doesn't even count all the other stuff that you can do with it. We canned some, we made juice out of the other tree. You won't be short of fruit unless you majorly prune it. And you can look on this tree and see that it still has buds. In those areas that I pruned, it still has buds. And you're gonna feel like you're throwing away your fruit doing this, but what you're doing is you're making it more healthy so that you have better fruit, and actually more fruit survives to maturity. So here's kind of a better look. You can see, let's see if I can do this on the camera. Right here is where I've pruned the tops, and here is where I haven't. But you can see all along that line, there's a thick part ends and the thin part begins. That's where I pruned in the past. And All of that is 1 year's growth. When walking by the pond, always take out your cell phone and put it someplace dry. Alright, so this tree is looking pretty good. There's another tree behind, so let me walk around and show you. There's 2 trees here. So this tall one, yeah, it could have more, but I think it's okay because it's not that big. Now this tree I haven't done much to, but this tree here, you can see, is pretty well done. We have some sticking up, but that's okay. And look at all the stuff that we got. We got piles and piles of branches just from mostly the one tree. There's some from the other tree, and also some in the pond that I and also some of the pond that I need to get out still. So there is a short lesson in pruning, and we did mostly one tree. I'll be doing the other one soon. I might not get to it today, but I did want to get this done so I can get this one coppered, and then also the other ones as well, but I wanted this one specifically. So thanks for hanging out. And I hope your pruning goes well.